Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dallas Cowboys coverage after a heartbreaking loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars in just humiliating fashion. We talked about how the Packers game was pretty much the worst loss we've seen in a long time, and this one almost topped it. It felt like everything just caught up to the Cowboys in this game. It was just so frustrating. Another just completely blown lead, a pure, second half choke job by the Cowboys, and it was just so frustrating to watch, just so disappointing, just for a team that seemed to be kind of getting things going. It just was hoping it was like a fluke game against the Texans, but now it just, I think, causes and raises a lot more concern because it's like, where is this team at? And, let me know what you guys think exactly how far this team can go, because it's been a roller coaster of a season. It's went from over to, better to Super Bowl, best defense to, now the defense is struggling. Now, it's just starting to feel more like another typical first round, second round exit type of year. And it's just, that's not what anyone wants to see. And it's just really frustrating, for at this point of time. I'm not counting the Cowboys out after one, really two bad games, but they got to turn it around. They're going to have an opportunity against the Eagles, likely, I think now confirmed without Jalen Hurts. You'll have Gardner Minshew, and then it's just, to me, that's got to be a win. I mean, if you can't go out and beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts, how are you going to beat them later in the playoffs with Jalen Hurts? It's just to it's got to be a statement. Christmas Eve, give us a gift. It's got to be a statement victory, and you just got to play like we've seen the Cowboys play. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's just, if the offense, the defense, and the special teams can play to their potential, play all well in one game, then you have a performance like the Colts. The fourth quarter against the Colts, that's what you get. And that's just seldom showed up this year. Lately it's been the offense has been rolling. We've been scoring 40 points, and then we give up 43. You can't have that. And then at the beginning of the year, of course, it was the defense, best defense in the league, and then the offense just, you know, Dakless, struggling. And now it just feels like the offense is back on track and the defense is just sort of falling off a little. The injuries have really caught up, especially on the defensive side. I'm going to talk about that in a little while, but I think that's just a huge factor, and it's just really frustrating, but it's really, placed a lot of stress on the defense, and it's really caused some issues. Anthony Brown, and everyone's been trying to run him out of town, but now all of a sudden I think we'd love to have him back, because Calvin Joseph has just been terrible. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Just he's looked lost out there. He's was thrust into the role, cornerback two, to replace Anthony Brown, the former second round pick, but he's starting to just sort of look like he's getting into that Tristan Hill territory, just looking like he's just has no idea what to do. This is a second round pick, someone that the Cowboys viewed as a first, second round pick type of prospect, and he's just, it is early. That's, don't get me wrong, but it's just really, really been rough for him. And the Cowboys, I think you just got to look at changes. They've talked about maybe kicking DaRon Bland to the outside, maybe Mackenzie Alexander, who was elevated from the practice squad for the Eagles game, maybe will fit into the slot. You have options. Maybe it's Nashawn Wright. Don't love that either, but it's just really a tough situation for the Cowboys, losing both Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown. It's really placed a lot of stress on the defense, and I think they're two of the more underrated players on this Cowboys team. Because don't get me wrong, Anthony Brown is terrible on those deep routes. He feels like he gets burned every time. But you got to understand that he is not just a bad player. He's really pretty solid, especially on the short routes. He's not bad. It's just those deep routes, just that's his kryptonite. But unfortunately, Kelvin Joseph, everything's been his kryptonite. He's just been lost. He's been a liability, and there's no other way to put it. And it's just, it's got to change. That's got to be a number one priority this offseason. But for now, I mean, we got to win now. And it's just, hopefully I can trust Dan Quinn to just figure out something with what he's got. It's a tough challenge. He talked about how it's basically an open competition right now. So DaRon Bland, want to give him a lot of credit. He's done a great job stepping into that slot role. And we'll see how he does, where he's likely going to be kicked out to cornerback 2, leading the team, 4 interceptions. He's really looking like a huge and incredible addition, a late round gem, being a 5th round pick. And then Kelvin Joseph, last year's 2nd round pick, just really looking lost. He's great on special teams, but you look for a lot more in a former 2nd round pick that you really hope to be your number 2 cornerback going forward. So now just a lot of question marks there. That's one of really the biggest concerns. And then just other issues. Dorrance Armstrong banged up. We'll see if he gets to play. Leighton, Vander. Initially, it was thought to be a neck injury. Fortunately, that's not the case given his injury history. That was really a big concern. But instead, it's a shoulder stinger. So he will not play against the Eagles, but is likely to be back for sure before the playoffs. But I think he'll probably be back against the Titans, or at the latest the Washington Commanders. So that's really just the big thing on the injuries. There's just been a lot of guys banged up, especially on the defense, and this is a defense that we were calling, a Super Bowl defense. I still think they can be, but a number 1 defense in the league. And now it's just, they've dropped off quite a bit in the past few weeks. Micah Parsons really had his best game in a while. Had, I think, tied his career high for pressures. He had really sort of disappeared the last 2 weeks, but really bounced back. But it's got to be more. I think you had, 1, maybe 2 sacks. The Cowboys, that's where they have feasted all year with the sacks. And it's really been a big drop-off lately. And that's, if you want, that's putting even more strain on the secondary. And, of course, it's a two-way street. The secondary letting guys open easy, it's tougher to get sacks. And everything's, it's a balancing act. And everything's affecting everything defensively. And it feels like it all goes back to that cornerback position. And it's just, I'm not sure exactly what you do. I think you got to hope Mackenzie Alexander can do an okay job. Hopefully DaRon Bland can translate to an outside cornerback from his normal slot role. But, that all remains to be seen. And we will see against Gardner Minshew and the Eagles. So moving on to the offense. Tony Pollard, Zeke, they've been very solid. CeeDee Lamb had an excellent game. Noah Brown had a great game until the terrible part where he drops and basically loses the game for you. So that was tough. But a good game overall. Michael Gallup, again, just where's he been? I've really been disappointed. I think if you want to look at most disappointing players, Kelvin Joseph's on the list, but maybe even higher is Michael Gallup, because you paid him a huge 5-year contract to be your number 2 wide receiver. But I mean, he's been almost non-existent. He's only at maybe 300-ish yards on the season. He hasn't been there. And for me, it's just, you chose to trade Amari Cooper and pay Gallup instead of him. And Amari Cooper is on track for 1,000 yards, and Michael Gallup is looking like a 4th wide receiver. And that's just so frustrating for me. I know coming off the injury, it's tough, but we got to see more from Michael Gallup. He's being paid like a number 2, number 1-ish wide receiver, and he is just playing like a backup. I mean, it's really frustrating. Really want to see more out of him. Noah Brown has really been your wide receiver 2 this year, and he's done a pretty solid job. Again, just little mistakes like that, though. It's just, he's Noah Brown, and you can't expect everything out of him, but just really a crucial drop resulting in that pick 6 that just loses the game for you. Just so frustrating. The offensive line has been pretty up and down this year. I think, they've played good enough. Maybe you want to ask for a little bit more, but I think they've done a good job. Dak really not taking a lot of sacks. I'm not putting it on them. But finally, Dak Prescott the inconsistencies have been just terrible for him. It's scary, honestly, because one drive he's going out and looking like a top 5 quarterback in the league, and then the next drive he's throwing just interceptions like a rookie. And it's tough. I mean, I know they're not all his fault, but at the end of the day, he has, I think, 11 interceptions in 9 games, and that's just completely unacceptable. It's already tied his total from all of last season, and it's just, you can't have that. I love Dak Prescott, and I'm one of the biggest Dak Prescott supporters and defenders, but this season, it's been rough. It's just been the model of inconsistency, and again, I'm not putting it all on him. I'm not putting any of these losses all on him. No loss is all on one player, as much as it's easy to blame Noah Brown or blame Dak Prescott, it's on the whole team. But Dak Prescott, man, it's just these interceptions are so out of character, but they're getting to be just so game-breaking. I mean, they're not all his fault. I'm not trying to say it's all on him, but they're momentum killers, and these games have been going great until he throws those interceptions. We saw it. It's those turnovers just kill you. I mean, you were up 27-10 in this game, and then that terrible interception in the red zone, and they score a touchdown, and then all of a sudden they're rolling. All of a sudden they take the lead, and then Dak, great drive to get the lead back, but then just the interception is putting this team in bad situations. And Dak Prescott was able to scoop everyone out, and they were able to come back against the Texans, but this time it came up short. Simply, Dak Prescott has been just so inconsistent. He's had great drives, don't get me wrong. He's been playing well. He's gotten this offense back to a top 3 offense in the league, but it's just those crucial little interceptions just are killing games. And the whole team needs to do a better job responding to them, because it just feels like it's kind of a gut punch for everyone, and it takes a while to sort of get back on track. Teams got to have a shorter memory than that, but that's on Dak. You just got to stop throwing these bad interceptions. At the end of the day, you're the one throwing them. It's on you. And if it were a few every here and there, but it's been bad. I mean, when you're throwing more interceptions than games played, that's a huge concern. And I think that's one of the number one problems this team needs to have fixed. Because if Dak Prescott throws interceptions like this in the playoffs, you cannot expect to be winning games. And you cannot expect to just be having these miraculous comebacks either. You can't dig yourself in a hole. And when you're doing well, you can't literally give the game away to them. And that's what's been happening. There's been some close calls in a lot of games. We saw it in the Packers game. The interceptions put you behind, and you kind of rebounded, but in the end it wasn't enough. Again, that was also a really choke game. But that's just been the story of it. Shooting ourselves in the foot, putting ourselves in bad situations, and the team sort of gets back in it, but in the end, if it's not enough, it's not enough, and you lost the game. And to me, it all comes back to those very costly turnovers and, specifically the interceptions by Dak Prescott. It's got to improve. It's got to be better because, you're the quarterback. The team's relying on you. And he's had some great moments, but those interceptions are really just killers. And you just can't afford them. You can't. So that's really, the main thing is just all these little things adding up. And the most frustrating part about this game was you had so many chances to win it. I mean, just looking like the Micah Parsons, Jayron Kearse play. Forcing a fumble, all you need is one first down. And, you run it up the middle twice, and then you throw it, it's incomplete, and all of a sudden you're giving it right back to them. That's one of the main things for me. I understand trying to waste their timeouts, but to me, sometimes I just wonder, if you would just play it like you would play any other normal drive, maybe you would just pick up the first down and it'd be over. And to me, I just think that's really a strategic flaw. I understand running 3 times, wasting their 3 timeouts, but at the end of the day, if you get a first down, the game's over. So to me, you just got to be more strategic. Run it the first play, see if you can get something to go, but when you lose 3 yards with Zeke, don't just run it again. Try something. Play action. Catch them off guard. All you needed was one first down and this game's over. And you couldn't get that. To me, it's unacceptable. And then later, the Cowboys, of course, that one crucial play, but just all these opportunities missed. If Jayron Kearse, when unfortunately you get it back to them, if Jayron Kearse can tackle Evan Ingram inbounds, they've run out of time. They're probably going to have to chuck a Hail Mary. But instead, he gets out, and look, they're in prime position. It's just the little things like that are so frustrating. It's not something you can really, coach. It's just you got to get those things done. You got to change your mindset. And then, of course, on the last play, even after all this, you get a stop in overtime. The defense was not good, but they stepped up when it mattered. And the offense was not able to take advantage at that point. Again, when the offense is playing well, the defense is struggling. When the defense steps up, the offense can't get it done. That's the number one problem. This team, it's got to click at the same time. The special teams has been pretty consistent, but the offense and defense have been playing sort of a balancing act where they're just one goes up, one goes down. And you can't have that. You got to have them both up, or else you're just not going to have success. Certainly you're not going to have success in the playoffs. It's got to be consistency. Consistency is key. And if you can't have everyone playing consistently, you're putting yourself in trouble. So like I was saying, you're right there. You get it. All you need is a field goal. You're driving, and then Noah Brown, the ball bounces off his chest, pick six, game's over. That was just stunning. I had my hands on my head like, that just happened? It's just, there were so many opportunities to win that game, even after you gave up the lead. And when you can't convert, when you can't make good, you can't capitalize on those opportunities, you're not going to win the game. And that's what happened. And I think this was a real reality check because you shouldn't have won that Texans game either. But you came back. It was clutch. They got it done. But I think that sort of caught up to them in this Jacksonville game. And now you can't just be scraping by these really subpar teams, bad teams. I wouldn't call the Jaguars bad, but like a team that you should certainly be winning against if you want to be a legit playoff contender. And that's going to be the issue. You're going to play two better teams in the Eagles and Titans. They may not have their quarterbacks, so that'll help you. But the Cowboys got to prove they can beat good teams because all of their losses, except the Eagles, have been against bad football teams. The Bucs, the Packers, the Jaguars, all losing records. And you're losing to them? I'm concerned because the Cowboys have not had the most difficult of schedules this year. They've really struggled against some teams that they should not be struggling against. And now, going into the playoffs, the Eagles, the 49ers, I'm not worried about the Vikings. We killed them. But there's not as much competition. Those are the two teams I'm worried about. The Eagles, the Niners, and honestly the Bucs, because I think that's probably who we're playing in the first round. And Tom Brady in the playoffs, that's never someone I'm going to count out. So you got to be able to beat these teams. The little teams, if you want to beat the big teams. So to me, you have 3 games left in the season. And these are 3 games to get it right. Come into the playoffs with momentum, because in all likelihood, you're going to be playing Wild Card Weekend in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady and the Bucs. That's a game you should win, because most likely they're going to scrape into the playoffs with a losing record. But it's Brady and the Bucs. And this team's got to stop underestimating their opponents. They got to go in every game like you're playing a top team. Because I think that was part of it too. They underestimated the Texans. They underestimated the Jaguars. They got ahead in the Jaguars game, not the Texans game, and they sort of took their foot off the pedal. They're thinking, we're okay. And I thought it too. Going into halftime, in the third quarter, I was like, man, finally a relaxing Cowboys game. And boy, was I wrong. And I think that's the same thing the team was thinking. They're like, all right, we got this. They're already thinking about the flight home. You got to stay locked in. Finish this game. There's been 2 games where you have just absolutely choked. The Packers and the Jaguars, you were up big, double digits in the second half, and you choked the game away. That's unacceptable. You can't have that. You're not the Falcons. You're not Matt Ryan. Don't do it. Don't. Trust me, that is not what we need here. And then the other thing is if it's not that, it's the slow starts. You're digging yourself in a hole. They've been a lot better at that this year, but you just can't have it, especially come playoff time. And it's just all these things. They got to get it right. You got to fix this now. You can't go into the playoffs sort of sleepwalking. You got to get it done. The good teams, the Super Bowl teams, turn it on in December so they can really turn it on in January. This is your last. Well, you have 2 more. You have the Titans still. But you're running out of games. You have 3 games left, and you just got to get it right. The offense, the defense, special teams, got to click. All of them at the same time. And when they do, we've seen what happens. We've seen what happened. We saw the Vikings game. We saw the Colts game, at least in the second half of the Colts, the fourth quarter. But to me, I just keep pointing back to the Minnesota game. You're playing one of the best teams in the league, and you just obliterated them because everything was playing as it should. Even that game was not perfect. There were some flaws. There were some mistakes. But your offense was clicking. Your defense was clicking, and your special teams was clicking. And if this team, you have the roster, you have the players, and if they're all in the same game, that's the result you're going to get. And if one's struggling, if the defense decides to stay on the bus, stay on the plane, if the offense decides to make terrible turnovers, that's when you mess up the balancing act. One's up, one's down, one's wherever. And that's when teams beat you. That's when teams capitalize against you. And I know that you're not going to be all 3 clicking every game. I understand that. But we've only seen it happen maybe 3 times this year. You can't have that. It's got to be happening the majority of the time. We've had 10 wins. But every one of those 10 wins, there's been flaws. And in most of them, there's been pretty significant ones. There's been a lot of close games this year. In games that probably shouldn't be that close. And I'm not trying to take anything away from those wins, but when you get into playoff time, you can't have that. You can't be they're going to be close games. I'm not saying you should be blowing those teams out, but it's going to be tough. You're going to be tested. If you have to play that 49ers defense, if you have to play that Eagles offense, these are challenging teams that this team is capable, I believe, of beating. You have the roster, you have the talent, but it's got to click. It's got to all click at the same time. And if it can do that, this team can go all the way. If it doesn't, you're going to lose in the first round. It's just, there's so much balance. There's so much variance, really, in this team. And I don't really know where we're at. And like I said, you have 3 games to figure it out. And you just got to figure it out. And as end of story, you got to figure out where you are as a team. And all 3 sides of the ball got to click. Got to be consistent all at the same time. If you can do that, you'll win games. If you can't, you just won't. And that's just going to be on the team. That's going to be on the coaching staff to figure out. That's going to be on Kellen Moore to script better plays, to get CeeDee focused, to get, just get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Don't make Noah Brown be the one to make that crucial play. Scheme it for get CeeDee Lamb open. I've heard that a lot. Just get your playmakers involved. I feel like Kellen Moore does that a lot, with under the radar type of players, which is good, to get those players involved. But we saw it last year. It's like Amari Cooper wasn't the focal point. We were seeing so many times where it was like it's Michael Gallup getting the ball. Or a lot of times last year, Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown. And I'm not saying these aren't good players, but when you have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on your roster, I'm talking last year, get it in their hands. I understand that they're going to throw coverages at you, but especially last year when we had 2 number 1 wide receivers, script. Use Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown, use them as the distractions. Use them as the decoys. Script your playmakers open. Get them the ball. We see what CeeDee Lamb can do with the ball in his hands. We see the type of catches he can make. So why are you putting the game on the hands of Noah Brown? We saw it last year, and I think that was the main thing that drove Amari Cooper out of town. Everyone's looking at his stats like they're declining, but unfortunately, they weren't getting the ball to him. They weren't scripting him open, and he's one of the best route runners in the entire league. So many times in crucial situations, the ball was going to Cedric Wilson. It was going to Noah Brown. Why? Those players are great, and they're game breakers, every once in a while. But when you need a big play, you go to your superstars. I'll think about the Dallas Mavericks. Luka scored 50 last night. When the game's on the line, the ball's in his hands. You're not passing the ball to Spencer Dinwiddie. You're not giving it to Dorian Finney-Smith. You're not giving it to Tim Hardaway Jr. game on the line. The ball's going to be in Luka Doncic's hands. Even if he is just clobbered, it's going to be in his hands. And if he misses that shot, so be it. You gave it your best chance. But here, you're putting the ball in the hands of players that just are not your best. And I'm not saying force the ball, because that's its own problem. But scheme. Kellen Moore has got to make a concerted effort to get his superstars open. You don't have Cooper anymore, but you have CeeDee Lamb. And I understand they're going to throw coverages at him. And there's going to be times where you can't get him the ball. I understand that. But you have Ezekiel Elliott. You have Tony Pollard, who can make an impact in the passing game. I'm not sure if he was even on the field during that last play. It's just, you have playmakers on this team. Get them open. Make them the focal point. So many times, Kellen Moore is just, I sort of think he just treats everyone the same. Noah Brown is not the type of player that CeeDee Lamb is. I love Noah Brown. He's done a great job this year. But too many times, the ball's being forced to guys like Noah Brown and taken out of the hands of guys like CeeDee Lamb. And when the game's on the line, it's unacceptable. You got to get the ball in the hands of your best player, your best playmakers. And again, I'm not saying force the ball. I know it's not going to be open every time, but scheme. Draw up the plays. Get your stars open. Draw up plays for them. Don't just, have everyone run a route and make Dak decide who he's going to throw it to every time. Sometimes you just got to scheme. Sometimes you got to have a play and you tell Dak Prescott, this one's going to CeeDee Lamb. And then if it doesn't, Dak's an improviser. He can figure something out. But you got to scheme your stars open. Game's on the line. I want it in the hands of CeeDee Lamb. I don't want it in the hands of Noah Brown because it bounced off the hands of Noah Brown. And it's just those things like that. That's on Kellen Moore. Maybe that's a little bit on Dak Prescott, but I think it's just Kellen Moore. Got to get your playmakers open. You got to script better plays, and I think that's been the number one issue with Kellen Moore over these few years. We saw it last season. We're seeing it again this season. Noah Brown's great, but CeeDee Lamb is a whole lot better. Get it in his hands, you'll have success. And that's just got to be the key. Dan Quinn, defensively, he's got to step up too. It's a lot of this is out of his hands, the injuries, but I like what he's doing, kicking DaRon Bland outside, Mackenzie Alexander inside, trying new things. He's constantly evolving. And Kellen Moore, he's just really starting to feel more and more stagnant. The same play calls, the same curl routes. It's just, you need variety. Something's got to change, and maybe after the season means Kellen Moore's not your team's offensive coordinator anymore. But for now, he is, and he's got to step up. It's got to happen. So, obviously, again, just thanks again for watching, for keeping with me. I know I'm still not the best, I'll clear my throat quite a bit. I know but I just really wanted to get this video out. Sorry it's a little later. I'm going to try to get back on track. It's just been pretty crazy, especially now with Christmas time, everything going on. Merry Christmas to you guys. Christmas Eve game against the Eagles. We're all going to be watching. Hopefully we can get a big win, make a statement. Hopefully all this can come to fruition. So thanks again for watching. Thanks again for listening to all of this. And real quick before I go, I just wanted to quickly mention the Cowboys Pro Bowlers. Really, 7 Cowboys making it this year. Excellent number, the second most in the entire league. So shout out Tony Pollard, his very first Pro Bowl selection. CeeDee Lamb, his second. Zack Martin, his 8th. Trevon Diggs and Micah Parsons, each of their second as well. And finally, KaVontae Turpin, your rookie kick returner, he makes it in for the first time ever in his first season ever. So got to give him props. It was a funny story with him. Gets the call from Jerry Jones on Tuesday. He's afraid he's getting cut. He was thinking about that muffed punt. But instead, it's to tell him he's made his first ever Pro Bowl. So, congratulations to all of them. But of course, in the end, that's not the bowl game we want to be playing in. So, really happy to see them selected. They deserve it. Got to give them a lot of credit. But at the end of the day, let's make sure none of them are playing. Thanks again for watching. Merry Christmas, you guys, and go Cowboys.